Hey, Chase with EOTECH, and here is how to sight in your LPVO. So zeroing your optic can seem confusing at times, but I promise at the end of the day, it's all just math. The bullet does not lie. However, a lot of people do think it's magic. Sometimes it seems that way, but there's some simple things that you can keep in mind to make sure that you get a good zero for your rifle that you can depend on. And at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about. Today, we're using the Voodoo 1 to 10, now in tan. I think it goes great with my new SCAR, so that's pretty cool. This is obviously a 308 16-inch barrel, and all of that sort of comes into play when you're looking at how you're gonna zero your gun and what zero you're gonna use, right? The caliber, where you're shooting, the rounds you're using, atmospherics, the style of shooting you're doing, what you're shooting at. All these things sort of change how you're gonna zero your gun, what zero you're gonna choose. So at the end of the day, like most things, it's kind of up to you what you think is best. But today, we're using a couple of things that I'm gonna go over and explain sort of what zero we're doing and why, and hopefully that helps you guys out. So first, let's talk about what zero I'm using. So based on the range limitations of the day and considering where I live and where I shoot, which is the East Coast, I'm using a 50-yard zero. Now I know a lot of people do a 100-yard zero on a 308, especially an accurized or sniper support weapon, sniper rifle, whatever cool guy term you want to use. But at the end of the day, for my ballistics, the ammo I'm shooting most of the time, which is gonna be 147 grain M80 ball because it's cheaper and it works really, really well with the things that I shoot at. This is the zero I'm going to use. And actually out to 700 yards, which is about as far as I'm realistically gonna be able to stretch out on the East Coast, even on some of those sort of mountaintop to valley shots or whatever we may think of. I actually only have 113 inches of drop with a 50-yard zero, which is pretty good for me, and I don't actually need to dial with that based on the reticle that we're using here in the Voodoo, and so that's pretty nice. I can get quick follow-up shots, and I can get on target really easy with some really basic range estimation math and the reticle, so it keeps it easy and simple for me, which I like. So let's talk about how I actually got the data that I have and how that informed my decision on the zero I'm using. So we're using shooterscalculator.com, which is a great free application you can use on your phone or your laptop, and it gives you a ton of data, honestly more than I even need. We're using the G1 scale, and we're putting in the standard factory information for the ballistic coefficient, for the velocities, for our zero range, and for our optic height. Now do keep in mind, as risers have gotten more popular, the height of your optic over the bore does affect your zero. Now, like I said, it's just math, so I know people may be used to a lower optic height and they get uncomfortable when you start raising the optic up, but again, it just changes the math. It doesn't really change anything for you, right? It's all just numbers. So we have on the phone, as you can see here, it measured at 4 inches. It's actually 3.95 with this SCAR, with that mount, with the Unity mount, and with the 1 to 10 Voodoo. So I put in the 3.95 inches over bore. We've got 2650 as our estimated average velocity for the Federal 147 grain M80 ball. And that's gonna give us a pretty decent curve out to about 600. It starts dropping off a little bit more. It's around the 650 mark. And like I said, all the way from zero, where I'm at, again, the 3.95, obviously, right? Like right over bore, all the way out to 700. I've only got 113 inches of drop, which may sound like a lot. I'm not saying it's not much, but it's easy to hold over for that with this setup. And again, that's really about as far as I'm going to be shooting with this ammo, with this gun, and where I live. Like I said, the shooter's calculator is just a great tool. You can save it, you can export all the graphs, you can export the data. It'll work with your ballistic calculators or your Kestrel. There's a lot of different technology that we can use and put on these guns. Obviously, we can have laser rangefinders on here. We can have ballistic solvers. You can, like I said, you can have your Kestrel and all that cool stuff. I'm going to get there down the road, but obviously this is sort of a project gun, and so we're building that out over time. And today we're just talking about zero. But keep in mind, there's a lot of technology at your disposal which can really help you out and make some of this math a lot easier. Mounting your optic, a couple of things to keep in mind. Obviously, fitment of the rifle to you. So I've already adjusted my length of pull. I've measured that sort of the same way I do with a carbine because this is a multi-roll rifle, so I don't have to like get down in the prone and all that. I can shoot this from the standing. I can throw an offset red dot on it and shoot it fast, whatever. So basically just using the rough estimate of the length of my forearm as I grab the pistol grip, and the stock comes back and index is right in my elbow. The eye relief on this is 327 to 39, roughly in there through its range of magnification. So again, I'm just getting down on the gun and I'm addressing the firearm. This is on the Unity Tactical Fast LPVO mount, so it is a higher mount. So I've raised my cheek riser up here on the stock a little bit, and I'm just making sure that it's repeatable, and I'm building that touch point on my face, right? Where is the stock gonna touch my face every time? As you can see, it's right there on the line of my chin bone each time, and I'm right behind the optic. And I would encourage you when you're doing this with an LPVO to go through the entire range of magnification, because the eye box does change. So I'm gonna go ahead and dial it back to 1, make sure I'm good there, dial it into 10. And through that range of magnification, I'm not getting any parallaxing, scope shadow, any of that kind of stuff. Finally, what you want to do, of course, get in on your target and then adjust your fine focus. Make sure that's good and crisp to your eye, and you'll be pretty good to go. So that is getting your optic on the gun. And of course, keep in mind that you can put this on the rail, get behind your gun, and set your eye relief that way. It's not all based off of the length of pull of the stock. And this will change a little bit if you do have a precision gun. You're gonna be shooting in the prone a little bit. Obviously, you're gonna be much farther forward on the gun, so the length of your neck will come into play and all of that kind of jazz. But in general, guys, just keep in mind, take your time when setting up your optic. Make sure it's in the mount properly. Make sure the mount is going on the gun in the right spot, and it fits you, because nothing's worse than trying to get behind a gun, especially with harsher recoil, and having that optic not in the right place. You just put 3 rounds on steel to make sure that we're close enough to on targets that we can actually print on the paper and we're not wasting ammo. So now I'm going to shift over a little bit and dial it in. This is a first focal plane optic, so I can zero at any magnification range without any concern like you would have through a second focal plane. Going for center on paper. So this is an MOA reticle, so we got 0.25 MOA per adjustment. So we're going to go left. All right, let's see where it is. So real quick, 0.25 MOA, right? So 1 inch is 1 MOA roughly, not exactly, but for this purpose it works, at 100 yards. So we're at 50, so that is halved, right? So it's, math on camera is fun, but basically it's an 1/8 of an MOA per click. So we were about 6.5 to 7 inches low and about 1.5 to 2 inches right. And so I cut that adjustment in half. I thought I went far enough. And again, I did math for the 100, not for the 50. So I just doubled the, all I needed to do was actually double that adjustment. So I should be pretty close to on now. But if not, I get to shoot more, and that's fun. All right, so you've noticed that I took 3 shots from the steel initially to make sure I was actually printing an actual group. I've taken 2 shots each time here on paper. I know most people do 3 shots or 5 shots to get a group. All I'm really doing now, because we are at 50, I'm not seeing how tight of a group this can hold at 50. The rounds are all touching because it's 50 yards. I'm just working myself onto the target. So I'm gonna print this and actually assess my group once I get my 0 dialed in, and I'm doing that just to save ammo. You can do it any way you want. I don't care if you shoot 1 shot or a whole magazine in between your adjustments. That's just what I'm doing here today, and that's just to conserve ammo. All right, so it looks like we got it dialed in. So I'm now going to shift to the head box of the target and print a 3-round group just to make sure I am good to go. Another thing, guys, to keep in mind, don't fight your tripod. So in order to move from the head to, or from the center of the target rather to the head, I'm gonna actually loosen this up. I want minimal input from me on the gun, because that means I'm gonna move it. So I'm just gonna get behind the gun, I'm gonna loosen this up and let the gun just sort of settle there. By the way, big thank you to 2 Vets Tripods for sending this tripod out to us. It is absolutely amazing. And I'm just trying to have minimal input on the gun and lock down this tripod so that I can essentially walk away from it, and it's pretty close. All right, so this seems pretty good to go. I'm gonna print my confirmation group, and we'll see how it goes. All right, so you get what you get, right? So this is our target. Like I said, I confirmed on steel just to make sure we'd be able to hit paper, and we were. This was my first 2 rounds, just finding out where I was. Obviously, we were a bit low. Moved it up here. As I said it before, I cut the adjustment in half because I was doing it for 100, and I forgot I needed to cut that adjustment in half. So moved it back here, said, okay, we're pretty close. Wasn't sure if that was me pulling or if I was a little bit to the right. Turns out I was actually a little bit left, so that was me correcting. So it came over here. This is actually a 1/2 inch group. So that's it's not bad with, you know, 147 grain. Even though it is at 50 yards, that would be obviously a 1-inch group at 100. But I was pretty confident I was not inputting incorrect, you know, input into the gun. So I was to the left, so I made one quick adjustment and came over here, and that's what we ended up with. So this is an 1.5 inch at 50. That would be a 3-inch group at 100. Obviously, the rifle and the ammunition, even being M80 ball, is capable of better than that. That's me. That's 100% me, not the gun. But I'm happy that the group is centered up. And obviously, if I'm doing my part, moving the rifle a little bit less, applying the fundamentals a little bit better, I'm going to get a much better group. I'm pretty confident this is probably a 1.5 MOA setup as it is right now with the ammo I'm shooting. And again, shooter skill is always going to be the big determining factor there, but not too bad. So for everything I'm doing, you know, call it a 1 to 1.5 MO, even a 2 MOA gun out to 700 yards. That's pretty good for the East Coast. So pretty happy with that overall. So this was zeroing an LPVO. If you guys got any comments, questions, let me know everything I did wrong down in the comments, because I am excited about hearing all their ideas and thoughts. As always, thank you so much for watching. Train hard, live free. See you next time.